Hi, everyone. Pastor Don Smith here. Welcome to the Talk About It podcast, where we take relevant topics with a biblical point of view and we talk about it. You know you want to, and so do I. Let's talk about it. Welcome back, Talk About It crew. Pastor Don here with you. Thanks again for coming back. Oh my. Okay. Now listen, I know last week you listened to my wife's testimony. And I know I've heard from some of you that it was profound. And I know at the end of that, I told you that the story wasn't over. So what I want to do today is I want to tell you what happened 40 years later. Now, I need to set this up for you because what we've done is I'm taking excerpts out of a sermon that I preached called Victims to Victory. Several years ago, and I told this story of 40 years later, and so I'm taking excerpts out of that sermon to set this up. So let me help you. For those of you who've just joined, thank you so much for listening to our podcast. It has been amazing. We're so blessed. We're in this season where we're talking about forgiveness, and this is the way we're wanting to close out this season on forgiveness. So after my wife's testimony, you've just heard, my wife and I, now we've been married for over 32 years. But listen, 40 years later, my wife and I are traveling on vacation, and she gets a phone call from a detective in Charleston, South Carolina, where she grew up as a young girl. And I'm going to let the story play out for you to listen. But ultimately, this phone call is about the rape that happened to her. And it is about one of the gentlemen who raped her. And I call him a gentleman. Some of you that might have. Anyway. It is about him asking to be set free 40 years later. And this detective that calls my wife has had to spend a lot of time hunting for my wife because, she was a Graham as a young lady when she grew up and got married. You heard in her testimony about her first husband who physically abused her. She was a Roberts then and, getting divorced. And she's a Smith now. We've been married for over 32 years. But in that process, she lived in South Carolina, Alabama, Florida, and now in Michigan. So this detective has had to do a lot of research to find her, and he has found her. And he is tasked with asking her a question about this man's freedom. Now, I'm going to let the story play out because what happens in this story, I know the story intimately. I have re-listened to this story over and over again. I have told the story, and I sit here today recording a podcast about forgiveness in order to demonstrate the power of forgiveness to you, and I still can't believe the story. It's unbelievable. It is an incredible story of forgiveness. Now, if you listen to my wife's testimony, you understand that part of her testimony is that when she was a young lady, she stole a car. And so as I set this story up and we get this phone call, I start messing with her about this detective finding this car that she stole in a junkyard and finding a dead body in the trunk. None of that's true. I'm just trying to make light of this moment that is so profound and scary, to be honest with you, in our life 40 years later because we don't know what's going on. So you're going to hear me open up with this story. Everybody's laughing and those type of things. Listen, I want you to listen to this story. It is some years later after her father, who's also in her testimony, has passed away. And so we don't know if it's about the stolen car. We don't know if it's about her father's estate. We just don't know what's going on because the detective calls us. She didn't answer, obviously, because we didn't know who it was. Then we get the voicemail. We call back. We get his voicemail, and we're on vacation. And so this is an incredible moment in my wife's life. It's an incredible moment for me as a person to discover the power and the depth of total forgiveness. Listen, what I want you to do is listen very carefully as I tell the story 40 years later, and then I'm going to be right back. You said it in your testimony. So she's like, what is this all about? Should I call him back? Should I call him back? Should I call him? I don't know. And I'm just like, you know what? Here's what happened. They found that car you stole in a junkyard. And there is a dead body in the trunk. And he has found you. And she was like, do you? No. I said, there's a dead body in that trunk. They were about to crush that car. And I'm telling you, they found a dead body in that trunk. And boy, I don't know. Maybe you shouldn't call him back. So she calls this gentleman back and gets his voicemail and doesn't get to talk. So we talk for a little bit, but it's quiet too, because it's like, what's going on? Is this something to do with her dad who passed away some 8-9 years ago? Those type of things with his estate. Do you have other family? She has family members in Charleston. What could this possibly be about? He calls her back and he says, I need to make sure that this is the right Lisa Smith. And she says, okay, the phone is on the radio of the car so that I can hear also. And he says, Miss Smith, I'm so sorry to make this call to you. And I just need to apologize that I don't want to be the person who brings up things that could ever hurt you. I've never met you, but I have a job to do. And he says, Miss Smith, were you ever involved in a court case in Charleston, South Carolina in 1983? And my wife, I could see the color leave her face. She could not see it. My wife is a very colorful woman. I don't think I've ever seen my wife as a white girl. And instantly my heart sank also. And she said, yes. And he says, can you tell me the details? She said, I was raped by 3 men, and it was a court case, and those 3 men went to prison. And so somehow this guy, after all these years, has found my wife, this detective. Miss Smith, you moved from Charleston to Alabama, lived there a little bit, then you moved to Florida. You wound up getting divorced. You got remarried in Florida, and now you live in Michigan. She says, yes. Your name was Graham, it was Roberts, and now it's Smith. Yes, I know that I'm talking to the right Lisa Smith then. And so he says to Lisa, he says, I hate to have this conversation with you, but I have to have this conversation with you. I know it's been almost 40 years. You know, you ever think you're done with something? Do you ever think you moved on beyond it just in a moment in a time after so many years for something to come back and make you doubt whether you have? And he says, one of the gentlemen who raped you that night at gunpoint is petitioning after 40 years to be free. And whether he is free or not after almost 40 years depends on what you say. You don't have to come to court. I am tasked with finding you and asking your answer and going to court and giving the court your answer. And my wife says, well, I don't know what to say. Obviously, I have moved on with my life. And he says, Miss Smith, I don't need the answer right now. I need it by next week, by the end of January, because this court case is going to be before a judge. And your decision matters because it will determine. And so my wife said, can I can I take the week and think about it? He said, absolutely. He said, either you can call me next week or I will call you. My wife hung up the phone with this gentleman, and it was quiet in our car for a good while. I didn't know what to say to her. I definitely didn't feel like I needed to be the one to put the pressure on her as far as what will be your answer. And after some time of silence, Lisa looks over at me and she says to me, how can I make this decision? How can I make this decision? Has this ever happened to you? Let me say this to us, church, as I start this series, because I promised you I was going to be real to you. In my heart's posture, I'm like Paul. I'm not going to tell you anything that I haven't experienced, I haven't been through. I want to be just as real and human as you, because in my heart right there, I am angry for my wife. My wife gets a phone call after almost 40 years. Wait, I thought I was done with that. Not in the sense that I thought it was over, but in the sense that I thought I was healed from that. I thought that wasn't an issue for me anymore. I thought I wasn't hurt by that anymore. I thought God had delivered me from that. I thought God had set me free from that. But in this moment, what is going on? In this moment, come on, church. What I remember is a gun, 3 men. What I remember is anger at the police officers who interviewed me and suggested that maybe it was my fault because of what I was wearing that night. This moment, what I remember is a father whose eyes could not understand. This moment, what I remember is 3 men who were incredibly cruel to me. And a God who was nowhere to be found. As the worship team comes, I want to close with Lisa's phone call. The following week, my wife is on the phone with this detective, and I thank God for him. I don't know him. I probably will never meet him. But I thank God for his heart and how gentle he was. You don't need to know all the details. You need to know what I heard. Because my wife and I had not had any conversation. I determined not to put her in a place where she felt like I was being the one to pressure or give her an answer. Instead, I just coveted to pray for her heart, for her to hear from the Lord. And I was determined to support her no matter what decision she made. Because, see, in my mind, I don't think there was a right or wrong decision for her. I heard my wife on this phone call, and she's talking to this man. And she says to him, it's been almost 40 years. And God has been good to me. And I have no reason to hold unforgiveness towards this man. She's like me. She's got a little fight in her too. She says, I will say this, though. I cannot give you an answer, yes or no, because there are some things in my spirit that I think, as God has delivered me and set me free from one of the most horrible things that could happen to a person, from being held at gunpoint and violently raped by 3 men. I'm not bitter, and I have no need for revenge. She says, I realize you cannot tell me about his life or what has happened between that night and this day in his life. So I'll say this to you, and you can go in the court and give my answer based on what you know. She said, if that man has ever hurt anyone else since in this same way, I feel like my job is to be a protector. Because no one should go through what I went through. And so my answer would be no. And I realize you cannot tell me if he's ever hurt anyone in that same way. She said, but I will say this to you. If I am the only person that he has ever hurt in this way, and if after 40 years he's seeking to be free, she said, I'm as free as I can be in Christ, and so is he. Let him be free. Come on, somebody. Come on, somebody. My wife says, I'm not a victim. The child of the King. And so let him be free. Through that process, and I don't know why she did it. I haven't asked her. You can ask her. She did know the name of this particular gentleman who was asking to be free after almost 40 years. But she did not know the name of the other two. And she asked for their names. Why? She said, because I want them to be free also. Will you stand with me in this place? Faith is the victory that overcomes the world. The key is how we respond to the news. You willing to face your fears and move ahead with God? Are you willing to shrink back into the desert? Can I say this to us, church? There's no glory for God in that which is humanly possible. Faith begins where man's power ends. And the fact that you've been a victim to something, some way, somehow, and that your power, your strength has come to an end to overcome that, and you can't figure out how to be a victor or how to walk in victory because of this issue. Listen, that's where faith comes to play, where your power ends. And I need us to understand we have a God who delights in the impossible. And you and I, we can never test the resources of God until we try the impossible. So don't be a victim to past disappointments. Don't be a victim to past failures. Don't be a victim to present obstacles. You want to be a victor? One. You want to be a victor? Arm yourself with the promise of God. Trust in the Word of God. Prepare your heart to be, you've got to face reality, because here's the truth. You might not get the enemy haunting you in the form of a phone call from 40 years past, but you're going to get it some way. You got to arm yourself today. And I think to choose otherwise to be fatal. Talk about it, crew. Can you believe what you just heard? Listen, I've told this story. I've lived this story because I've lived with this woman for over 32 years. She's the mother of my children. the grandmother to my grandchildren, my partner in ministry, and I still cannot believe this story. I mean, who would have believed 40 years later that the test of total forgiveness would come full circle? You see, this is what we've been trying to talk about and give you some tools for this whole season. Here on season 3, forgiveness, to teach you that there's a biblical way to walk out total forgiveness. But the truth of the matter is, you can have all those tools, but if you're not practically applying them in your life, you're never going to experience the power of the freedom of total forgiveness. My wife's story is an amazing story of what total forgiveness really looks like. For me, I've seen it with my own eyes. For some of you, it may seem impossible. But I promise you, that's the reason for the season of forgiveness here on Talk About It, is to show you that what you think is impossible with total forgiveness is absolutely 100% possible. And this story demonstrates that to us all. It would be hard for me to believe if I had not lived it. But I want you to know this story so intimately that you too can believe that it can be possible in your life. What it can do for you, how it can demonstrate the love of Christ in the world that we live in. Total forgiveness frees you to be a light to those that you otherwise could not be. It's incredible. And so here's what we're doing. We're not done. Everybody say we're not done. We have one more episode left in this season, and it is going to be amazing. I hope you come back, because guess what? Here's what I've decided to do next week. We are going to have Lisa on the podcast. Come on, somebody. We are going to interview her. I'm going to gather some people in a room. We're going to put some mics together, and we are just going to interview her. We're going to take this, we're going to ask some questions, and we're going to let her talk to us about the power of total forgiveness. I have no idea how long that episode will last. I'm not even putting a time on it. I know I'm trying to keep these to about 20, 25 minutes with the exception of her full testimony. But next week, no, we're just going to have her in the room. I want you to be back. Listen, here's what I need you to do. I need you to tell everybody about what you just heard over the last couple of weeks. And if they haven't listened to them, I want you to get the link, give it to them, have them listen to her testimony, have them listen to this week's episode, and then tell them that you guys are going to get together and you're going to have like a podcast party where you're going to listen to us interview her. I'm going to get some very personal people in her life. One in particular, my daughter. Yes, the one whom she chose not to abort. Now, listen, Malen's not my biological daughter. But she is my daughter, and I am so glad Lisa chose. And every year at Mother's Day, Malen, without hesitation, comes up to her mother, and she says, "Mom, I'm so glad you chose life." My daughter is over 40 years old now. It's unbelievable what happens. And so you're not going to want to miss this. I promise you, if you've not listened to any of the other episodes, you can't miss this interview. It's going to be raw. It's going to be fresh. It's just going to be organic and spontaneous. We don't care how long it's going to go. We're just going to set up some mics. We're going to push record, and we are going to talk about it with Lisa. I am so thankful for all of you guys who've been listening. I hope that you have been amazed, blessed. I hope you sit in awe right now. Here's what I need you to do. There are some people in this world that needs to hear these messages, especially the last two and the one coming up. Can you share it Can you share it? Can you talk to everybody about it? Can you tell them what you just heard so that we can do more than just have a podcast, so that the power of total forgiveness can change people's lives? Can you do that for me? I know that God will bless it. I want to thank you so much for everything that you do. leave it in the comments. Just express your heart in the comments on this, wherever you're listening at. However, let us know just how this made you feel. And we are very, very interested in what's next. Okay, the last episode, we're going to bring Lisa in. We're going to do an interview. Man, oh man, it's going to be great. I am so excited about this. I hope you are too. Listen, I love you, and so does Jesus, and I cannot wait to see you back here next week. God bless.